Good to see everybody.
Hi, Jay.
Hello, hello.
Hello, everyone.
I wonder if there's a way to like mute everyone. Okay, maybe there is. Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, hey Jay. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. You can just enable mute participants on entry.
Good to see everyone. We'll probably give it a couple of minutes as people kind of file in, but thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with us. Got a lot of cool things to go over.
I'm glad to be here. Good afternoon. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. I feel like next time we should have like intro music so we could be vibing right now as we're waiting.
This sounds fun.
There's a possible hack in the future of adding like elevator music to Microsoft Teams as well. So hopefully that happens.
All right, so I just disabled the waiting room so people could just come in.
Oh, awesome. I was admitting them.
Frantically pressing the admit.
Yeah. And I feel like we have some new folks that have joined us today, which is super awesome. Like Jay mentioned, thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with us. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here with Mentor Mesh. So we're actually going to go ahead and kick off the call now. Try to mute folks really quickly. Okay. So welcome in, everyone. My name is Heaven Hamilton. My pronouns are she and her. I'm an engineering program manager at Twitter, and I'm also a program manager for Mentor Mesh. And I am here today to help guide us through this wonderful town hall that we have every month. We have these town halls so that folks can become familiar with Mentor Mesh. There are many of us that are already part of the community. So this is another great way to just celebrate a lot of the work that normally happens on the platform. And for new folks, this is also a really great way to meet other professionals. These are tech professionals or just other professionals in other industries that are either interested in tech or just generally want to connect. And today we also have some very special guests and PM coaches that are going to be joining us. And with that, I'm going to kick it off to Jay and he'll get us started.
All right. Thank you, Heaven. Really appreciate that. Well, welcome, everybody. I'm really happy to see so many people on a Friday afternoon, a lot of familiar faces and some new faces. So welcome to the community. So I started Mentor Mesh about 2 years ago, and a lot of it was around, I've been in tech for about 15 plus years, and I've been a hiring manager. And early on in my career, I believed a lot of things that most people believe when it comes to what you need to do in order to level up your career. And as I've kind of navigated my career, I just discovered what works, what doesn't work, and some really, if you consider it, maybe growth hacks into breaking into tech and what managers want, having been one myself many times for many years. And I wanted to share that. And I thought, well, honestly, community is what we need. A lot of us, when we think about our career journey, we do it by ourselves. We all want to level up. We all want to live better lives, have better opportunities, have opportunities to learn and grow. But traditionally, people do that by themselves. They try to figure it out on their own. They try different things. And then if it doesn't work, they try something else. And this could take years of battling with, why things aren't working and not knowing what to do next. And Mentor Mesh is a community of professionals and aspiring professionals that are here to support each other. We've got people from some of the most successful tech companies in the world, from startups, people that are brand new with no experience. And the idea is, instead of one-to-one mentorship, this is about community mentorship, because it's more than just learning from someone more senior than you. It's about learning from the diverse opinions of people around you. And in my experience, things like building your brand in public, allows you to be seen by recruiters and hiring managers. It allows you to skip the application process. Building and supporting your community helps you to demonstrate and flex your leadership skills, because mentorship is leadership. And by doing that, you get to grow as a person while supporting people around you. And those same people, as we all level up in our careers, we continue to support each other. You get to know people in the industry, which in my opinion is some of the best types of learning and education that you can receive, is by talking to people in the industry that you want to join, talking to people across the industry that you're in. And that accumulation of knowledge, those aren't necessarily things you're going to find in a book. And it's the real world things that we do every day that matter. Because sometimes when you are beginning your journey in career development or anything like that, there's so much you could learn, but only some of that is actually going to help you move forward. And a lot of people get lost. So talk to the people that are going to hire you. Talk to the people you're going to work with. Build relationships and network across the industry. That's going to give you the opportunities organically versus what most people are told, which is spend years getting credentials, spend tens of thousands of dollars buying these credentials, and then apply online. Like that's what most people are told to do. And that's what most people do. But in my experience, that is not the most effective way to land opportunities. What's interesting about tech too is that tech is business. It doesn't mean being technical. It doesn't mean coding necessarily. That's only one aspect of it. Any major company that's leading in this world has a technical component that's likely a major part of the way they do business. So being in tech really means being in business. So there's a spot for everyone. It's not gated by credentials anymore. There may have been a time when it was, but it's not true anymore. As many of you know, I don't have any certifications, no bachelor's degree, no formal education. And I've worked for many top tech companies, including Microsoft, Salesforce, and Twitter. So I feel like community is the answer to that. Networking, branding, knowing people. Yes, know and learn the foundation and the basics, but you got to know people in the industry. You'll actually learn about opportunities before they hit a job board. There's a lot of jobs that they've already figured out who they're going to hire by the time you apply, which is a bad experience for people that are applying. So trying to basically help educate people into better ways. How do you build in public? How do you become known in the industry so employers come find you? So MentorMesh is all about community. It's all about support. And these are the people that you want to work with. Many of the people that are on this call already work for top companies in the world. We're going to introduce you to some of them. So it's also a great way to meet people, because then there's that infamous question. You go to LinkedIn, has 800 million people, but how do you meet people? It's the most powerful business networking platform in the world with no networking capabilities. So you end up sending these cold DMs, you get ignored, and then you say, nobody cares about me. And that's not true. So part of it is learning how to network. How do you meet these people? Well, MentorMesh is an amazing forum for you to start meeting them. And as you start to build quality relationships with people within this community, it'll start to spiral out. They'll introduce you to other people. And all of a sudden, you have dozens and dozens of advocates in the industry for you, which I think is very important. You need that support, especially with online learning. When you think about what online learning feels like, it's us by ourselves, learning in the dark, getting frustrated, having nobody to ask, and quitting a lot of times. And then maybe you try again later. So it's a pretty lonely experience, and we don't believe that it has to be. Ask people that have been there. Career growth is definitely not a consistent upward spiral. It's a lot of this. It's a lot of up and downs. It's a lot of feeling defeated. It's a lot of applications that go unanswered, interviews that you get no feedback, but you get rejected. What do you do with that? Most people internalize that and think that there's something wrong with them. Maybe they're not qualified enough, and so they seek to be more qualified. When maybe qualifications was never the problem. Maybe it was the fact that nobody knew who you were and nobody even saw your resume. So when I've been a hiring manager for a lot of these companies and I open a position and you work for, let's say, a Microsoft or a Salesforce, I get 400, 500, 600 applications. It's not reasonable for me to see every one of those applications. So you may have gotten rejected simply because you weren't seen. You just applied 15 minutes late and you were lower in the queue. But a lot of people make big time decisions based on that. They will make big assumptions about their own qualifications simply because of a timing mistake. So definitely trying to get as many tech professionals as I can here to help mentor. I want everyone here to realize that they have something to share too. Mentorship is not a one-way street. You know, a lot of us, when you build, let's say for, instance in product management, your consumers are not necessarily tech professionals. So if you're a consumer of a product, you have a perspective to add. So being able to share your story, share your perspective, that is also mentorship. It's not always going to be top to bottom. All right, so that's my spiel for the new folks to understand, what is Mentor Mesh? We are here to support you is what we are. And so the next question is, okay, how do you get involved? What does it mean? Like I'm a part of Mentor Mesh, but what does that mean? Well, so you can definitely register for free at mentormesh.io if you haven't. So you'll see the community there. There's about, I think we had about 500 new members over the last month. So we're at about just under, I think, 4,300 right now. So over 4,000 members, more than half of which came in the last 4 months. So we've been definitely kicking it up lately. And a lot of it is what you'll notice is that in Mentor Mesh, we do weekly events every week, anywhere from 1 to 3 different events every week. They're mentorship sessions, they're teaching sessions, they're learning sessions. They're opportunities for you to share your story and ask for help. What are you struggling with? What are some advice that we can give to you? What kind of support do you need? But one thing that I ask everybody that joined the community is that the only way this works is if people enter the community wanting to help first. The mistake that a lot of people make is that they'll join a community and they'll say, this is what I need. I need a job. Here's my resume. Who wants to hire me? That's not the most effective way to introduce yourself to a community. And so what I ask new people to do, if you want support in your career, support other people first, right? You'll see something in the introductory tab called, when you go to mentormesh.io, it's called the Mentor Mesh Challenge. And I ask people to do that. And it's simply just introducing yourself and sharing things that you know. Even if you don't know anything, go research something and then share it with the group. It's kind of a good faith way to show that you care about other people leveling up too. And if we all kind of carry that mentality first, because mentorship is leadership, we aspire to be leaders. We do that first, we can create a culture that makes more sense, right? Where we're not just asking for help, but we give help first. And you'll have more people giving than asking. And I think that's a formula that works better. So take a second, do the Mentor Mesh Challenge, introduce yourself. Let's see who you are. And so like I mentioned, if you go to the events tab on mentormesh.io, you'll see a ton of events, and check back often, because sometimes we don't post them as soon as we should. Maybe sometimes it's a couple of days before the event, but check the events. There's usually 1 to 3 different events. We love to do audio sessions on Twitter Spaces. So it's a great, like, low cognitive load way to just listen in. It's like listening to a live podcast if you've ever done that before. We'll have tech professionals there. You can ask questions, you can get help, you can share your story, your challenges. That's mentorship. We have this monthly town hall, so please keep coming to that. Well, I'm going to continue to introduce you to more people that you should know, people that will volunteer to connect with you. There is nothing more valuable than building a strong professional network. So if someone offers a coffee chat with you, take it. It's very, very valuable. We also have a weekly Twitter space that we call Share Your Story. And that's specifically for the community. Like, come tell us what you're struggling with. And let's give you some advice. Let's give you some support. And that's what that is basically for. I have a special thing I've been working on lately. As many of you that follow my content on LinkedIn, I hate the interview process. I hate it so much that I've been launching a series on canceling interviews. And to be honest, it's because I could go off on this, but I'm not going to. Interviews are 100% subjective, right? You cannot tell somebody's future value by having a conversation with them. You can't. All you're testing them is their ability to speak. And if that's the role, then maybe that matters. But a lot of times it's more, you need to do more than just be able to speak. It's interviews cater to a certain set of people that are very good at high pressure speaking on their toes, where a lot of us are just not. We just don't like that. And that doesn't mean that we can't kill it at our jobs. We absolutely can, but the process is very flawed. I believe the way you get around that process is by creating reputation. How do you create reputation? When people know who you are before you get into that meeting, it changes the outcome of the meeting. If they came after you because they are soliciting you for a role, it's very different than when you're applying for a role. So the key is to position yourself so that recruiting managers and everyone that's hiring is coming after you so that you are in demand and no longer begging for roles. Every job that I told you that I've had, I did not apply for any of them. I was solicited by sourcers and hiring managers directly who found me on LinkedIn. So when I went to the interview process, it was much easier for me because they had already decided that I was somebody they were interested in. So the conversation was very different. And so I believe on building reputation in public, and hopefully with some little help, we might be able to get past a lot of this ridiculous interview, or at least make interviews much more fun, feel less like an interrogation and more like mutual fit. Some companies are really good at that. A lot of companies are not good at that. So I'm hoping through this series, let me see, on the 10th of May, so it's in 4 days. If you folks want to join me for that, would love to chat with you and hear your opinions. Tell me your horror stories. Love to hear like why you also hate interviews. Or if you love them, that's fine. I don't think there's a lot of you. I might kick you off the stage if you defend interviews, but anyway. But yeah, so we've got AMAs coming up. So I try to use my connections and people that I know, people from Apple and Google, Microsoft, tech companies. You tell me who you want to talk to. I'll find someone in the industry to come talk to us. You want to meet someone, you build relationships with people. And this is it. You come to these events, you meet them, you keep showing up. People will start to notice you. They'll start to care about your journey too. And that is the important part. You got to build quality relationships. There's no quick way around that. That takes time, that takes consistency, that takes authenticity, but people will appreciate you and they'll lift you up. When you go through difficult times, and everybody does, they will lift you up before you ask. That's the kind of the culture that we have at MentorMesh. That's the type of people that we want. And so if that's you, please join the community. A couple of other things real quick that I'm trying to do to help up-level the community is that I'll be introducing later this month an advisory board for MentorMesh. So these are going to be people that work for top tech companies and startups and people with inspiring stories, most of which have non-traditional backgrounds, most of which don't have bachelor's degrees, however, have amazing jobs and very prominent and high-level positions. And it's not because, of course, like I don't have any issue with higher education at all. But sometimes people correlate success with higher education, and that's just not true. Even if you have a bachelor's degree, even if you have a doctorate, you still need to put the work in. And a lot of people find that out the hard way. They think that that certificate is going to get, that diploma is going to guarantee success, and that is not how it works typically. You still have to put the work in. And I want to showcase stories of people that have done it. People like myself, other people with different backgrounds. Some of them do have formal education, absolutely, but maybe not even in CS degrees. Maybe they got something totally different area, and we're still able to transition and pivot. So the advisory board is going to help MentorMesh level up. They're going to help us get more speakers, more people with great stories, and we're going to be able to share and introduce you to more and more people. And also, there's a couple of things that MentorMesh also does. Now, keep this in mind. We give a ton of free content. Because a lot of people will approach me and they say, should I do this boot camp? Should I do this training course? You got to remember that what you're paying for is structure and curation. All of the knowledge is free. It's all for free. Go to YouTube, or really, really cheap, $30 a month, and you can get anything, learn from anyone, right? But if you go to a boot camp or go to a college or go to any structured program, what you're paying for is curation, right? You're paying for structure because it is easier for some people to learn that way, but you absolutely don't need these courses. You don't need them. If you're willing to put the work in and pull it together yourself, there's nothing that you cannot learn, right? There's not people that you cannot meet. But it does make sense for some people that they prefer to have some structured learning. So when I tell people, go meet, build a presence online, that can be a very scary thing to do, especially on LinkedIn, right? You're like, what do I even post? Well, I have a leadership accelerator program. We'll post together. We give weekly challenges. We do leadership activities. and we show you how to build a brand in public. None of this is top secret, but if you want to come build it with us, then we have a small paid program to help you do that. But either way, you can see it all. It's all very public. It's all on LinkedIn. You could follow along however you like, and we have people that do that. So we have an accelerator program for people that want to learn how to build a brand in public, to learn how to lead, learn how to mentor, and meet people within the cohorts. Also a great way to meet people. And then also coming in late May, early June, I'm doing a product and program manager foundational bootcamp, where I'm going to bring a lot of instructors and teachers together, again, to help skyrocket people that want to go a little bit faster. So that's also a paid program. But again, none of this information is proprietary. You can find it all. This is about paying for structure. A lot of people learn really well in cohorts, right? Like if you have a group of people that at that moment in time want to do the same things as you, it can be very powerful. And we found a lot of that. But in order to build that structure for you, there's a cost to me too. So I have to kind of pull this together, and that's why I do this. I found that as I've executed on different accelerators and boot camps in the past, people they love to learn together. The community vibe is strong and it's real. And if that's something that you thrive in, it might be something that you want to consider. So come join mentormesh.io for free. If you're interested in those types of programs, I'll be posting stuff over the next few weeks. Registration is closed right now, but it'll be open probably in about 2 weeks for the next batch of cohorts. All right, so I ran through that as fast as I could. I'm sorry for that. But if anything you need to repeat, again, like come to MentorMesh, ping me directly. Would love to chat. There's always going to be events every week. There's always opportunities for you to meet the community and to continue to level up. So please consider doing that. And I think I'm going to hand this back to Heaven.
Thanks, Shay. One of the things that we do every town hall is we like to celebrate winners. So like Jay was mentioning, we have an accelerator, we have cohorts, and each week we send folks off to do various missions and things and challenges. But for April, we wanted to bring the cohorts together so they would do more leadership activities, but more specifically, wanted them to create new groups within the MentorMesh platform. We have so many members and we want to find ways to keep folks engaged. We want to welcome new folks and we want to be able to provide that community value add. So from that challenge, here is what was just recently created on MentorMesh. We now have a new group called Coffee Chat Corner. It's created where you can come meet people, build relationships, polish your networking skills, and you are also able to meet other people that have successful careers that you're interested in. This is not only a great name, but it's a really great idea. Sometimes having like one-on-one like coffee chats or like get to know you conversations, it can be a little bit awkward, can be a little bit difficult. But I think this cohort did a really good job with putting this group together and then with getting the ball rolling. And they also had a lot of members join and sign up for this group. So great job to that cohort. We also had another new group called On the Product. What is it called? On the product periphery. So this is where product managers can come learn about product management through other roles, which I actually think this is another great idea, especially when you are working with cross-functional areas, whether it's like data science or design. So this is a really cool group that was also created on the platform. And last up, we have the LOL group for learning out loud, which I actually think that this is really important for MentorMesh. Jay was mentioning like we are lifelong learners. We're people that like to learn together. We are people that like to learn and fail together at the same time and be able to lift each other up. And I think this is another great way where you can come share what you're learning, share what your goals are, and then level up together. So needless to say, 3 new amazing groups have been created. I'd like to send out thanks for all of the folks that not only participated, but the people that drove the creation of these groups. And so from this, our April winner is Cohort Green. Congratulations, Cohort Green. They are the ones that created Coffee Chat Corner. They won because they not only had the most members joining, they had 148 members, but they also had the most non-accelerator members join, which is also really important to get more people in MentorMesh involved. Outside of the cohort winners, we also had just individuals that we felt really stood out. Again, these are people that were like drivers of these groups. They were inside of the meetings. They're doing a lot of the plannings. They may have potentially been doing like hosting some Twitter spaces. So from that, we would like to specifically call out Matt, not Matt, Max, Jalea, and T. You are the 3 individual winners that we have for this month. And we also have some honorable mentions. These are still folks that we just think did a tremendous job during the planning of this, and that is Vashaka, Colleen, and Linda. I would now like to welcome and invite any cohort green members or winners of this call. Like to invite you to come off of mute. You can share your experience for what it was like bringing this together in April, or if you just have any general excitement for being winners of April, please feel free to come off of mute.
All right, I'll come off of mute. Thank you. It was kind of a collective with people coming in and out. We dealt with sickness, work, so it was great to see and also get the engagement of people that were kind of first-time members to Mentor Mesh in general. We have felt that coffee chats all along are the best way to meet people and grow your network. I'm still joking about the VP that told me to read a book this afternoon, but coffee chats are a little different, and just thank everybody that put in the work, and congrats Max and everybody else that were the April cohort winners.
Hey y'all, this is Ebony. I am sorry I'm not on video with y'all today, and there's noise of course, but I just want to say real quick, I'm really, oh my gosh, sorry y'all. I just want to say real quick, hold on, I'll be back later.
Man, I know that feeling. I know that feeling. I got
the
a
birds are
3-year-old.
kids.
Oh
The
man,
birds are
my
kids.
3-year-old, she'll do it. She knows when I'm trying to talk. She knows.
I got 3 running around in the hallway outside right now, right there with you.
And maybe as we wait for our brave cohort winners to raise their hand and for Ebony to come back, what's interesting is a lot of these exercises I just want to bring out. So like the challenge was to bring a bunch of strangers into a new group within Mentor Mesh. And at first, I'm sure a lot of folks were like, why does Jay want us to do this? That's weird. Well, think about this. If you're a product manager or even a software engineer, most of us have no authority. Your ability to influence people that don't have to listen to you is incredibly important. How do you get strangers to care about what you care about? And that's essentially what this is. So think about that for a minute and how that translates to work. If you're a product manager, you work with engineering, you work with design, you work with communications, marketing, legal. None of them report to you, and they can all ignore you if they want to. So what's your approach to get people that have their own charters and their own priorities to care about your priorities? How can you sell a vision? How can you convince people? And honestly, the goal of a lot of this and the way you do this is by building relationships. A lot of people will assume that I just need a really good doc with an amazing vision and then people will come. Well, guess what? Most people won't even read your doc. They won't even be able to benefit from the high quality bar that you just created because they don't know who you are. They don't know why they should listen, and they're busy. So they're not going to read your doc. So the question is, I open this new group. How do I get people to care about this group? That was the challenge. And you'd be surprised that there is no fast way to do this. A lot of it is about building one-on-one relationships with people, giving them time. Yes, creating a pitch that's based on what they care about, not what you care about. If I start a group on how to bake bread, but 90% of my audience is allergic to gluten, I'm going to have a problem getting membership to that group. So before you create that group, look at your audience. What do they care about? What are they asking about? Everybody that joins Mentor Mesh tells you, most of them tell you what they're interested in. Did you look and see what they're interested in? Did you pick a topic that they would be interested in? This is your audience, right? So if you understand the constraints of the challenge, did you consider that when you created the group? And did you consider your time constraints, how much time you had, and what you needed people to do in order to win the challenge? This is no different than any other role that you have in any job, in any company. You need to understand what your constraints are, what your customers are, your winning conditions, and how do you influence people without authority? That's what this is about. And honestly, when you think about building a brand on LinkedIn, Just because I write this amazing story on LinkedIn, that doesn't mean anyone is going to read it. Why are they going to read your story? Right? So when you think about that, those are a lot of the things that we talk about. How do you influence people without authority? How do you build community? And all of this translates to how you can be effective at your workplace, because of the bigger companies you work for. If you ever work for a Microsoft or something like that, you've got hundreds of stakeholders potentially. How do you get those people to pay attention to you? They're busy. They're not sitting around waiting to do what you want. How do you get them to pay attention to you? Because even if you are a director of engineering, guess what? The only people accountable to you are the engineering team. But you're working with the product team, the design team, the security team, the marketing team, and they are not reporting to you. They do not need to listen to you. So this is something that people need to get really good at that's often overlooked. How do you convince people to care about your mission? And especially if you're interested in product, this is fundamental to how you are going to be successful. So I'll pause there just to give context to some of the exercises that we do. But go ahead, Amber. Love to hear from you.
Hi, thank you. I'm part of Cohort Green, and I've been lucky enough to be a winner in the past of some of these groups. I'm really thankful for Mentor Mesh and the Accelerator program. Coffee chats help me have my interviews and do really good. I'm still waiting to join a team, but they changed everything for me in this game. I love that my whole group really felt that, and we all grew a lot from coffee chats. So that was an easy way for us to decide this would be a great thing to help everybody, and they can grow and then talk to hiring managers and feel their confidence in their story. And for a lot of y'all that I haven't chatted with, I haven't shared my Calendly again because I'm booked until I think June. Because I love talking to everybody so dang much. I'm going to try to extend more people I can talk to in a day. But I'm happy that it helps somebody, and anything that I can share can help you too. But more so, Jay hinted at the beginning of this challenge to check out. There's a post that if some of y'all are new to Mentor Mesh, please post on it. And it is, what's your dream job? And I went through that, and I think I tried to connect with every person I could through that and the LinkedIn post, just to see what did they really want and could I help them? And I'm super new to tech, but I have a lot of connections somehow on my LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to connect with me and meet them, maybe I actually truly know them, or I love going to summits, so I met them through that as well, and just passion of learning. So please connect me, have my network, it's yours too. I love this community, but and a lot of people were feeling alone. So a big part of coffee chats and building this group is not only so you can get that dream job and talk about yourself in the best way, but you're not alone. No matter where you are in the world, we can find a time to talk, and we're all in this together. So I just was really happy to be part of this group as well. And that's a big part of this group that I talk about with everybody. They're like, what's this thing you talk about? I'm like, I learned how to talk about myself and talk about some stories that I was really nervous about and embarrassed. Non-traditional background, healed a brain injury. You don't mention those things, I thought, in tech, but that's made people really like my story and want to care about it, I guess. And I didn't think that before. So I appreciate this community. I'll stop talking. Join Coffee Chat Corner. And Ebony, if you can talk now, she has just inspiring me this entire time. Everybody in my group really, but oh my gosh, the way she connects is, talk to her. She's incredible.
Thanks, Amber. I'll try again. So I just want to say real quick. So like I feel like this was an opportunity given to us to like leave a lasting impression behind, like to create a sense of almost like a permanence in Mentor Mesh. Like this is like the group that everybody can come to, everybody can contribute to. Nobody, doesn't have anything that they can't add to this group to start their, journey of networking. I can't even think with this YouTube playing in my ear. I'm sorry, y'all. But let's go real quick. The second thing is I can't think, y'all. I'm excited that we got to do it. And yeah, that's YouTube kids in my background. I jumped out the car real quick, but I'm gonna jump back in there and just keep listening. But go Team Green.
Thanks, Ebony. We always appreciate your input. And Ebony is one of those great stories that we talk about, right? Like she's somebody that didn't think that she could aspire for better, but she's in that Fortune 500 group now. So when we hear stories like that, we love for people to share like how they got there. You know, sometimes you go to LinkedIn and all you see is posts of people. Yes, I got the job at Google. I got the job at Microsoft. Okay, good for you. How did you get that job? What did you do? So it's really important to share that story. So the rest of us that are trying to level up, give us a bone, throw us a bone here. Like tell us your secret sauce. And you get enough perspectives from enough people, you start to figure out what works for you. All right. Going once, going twice. All right. So if we have no more volunteers, is it my turn again, I think?
It's back to you. Time for our guest speakers.
Okay. So we've got very great people for you folks to meet today. One of my missions is to help with that networking process, right? Like it's hard to meet people in the industry you want to join, especially if you don't have a bunch of friends. And a lot of us, myself included, when I first started, I didn't know anyone. So, and how do you meet people? Well, MentorMesh is a great place to meet people. So we've got 4 very powerful and very cool people to meet. We have 2 special guests, and then we have 2 product coaches that are going to be part of the PM bootcamp that I was mentioning earlier. But I want you to meet 2 of our first special guests, Michelle and Gary. And so I'd love to start with Michelle if you want to. I think Heaven gave you a list of a prompt. But if Michelle, if you want to go first and introduce yourself to MentorMesh. Some people you guys have already maybe have met her before, but for those that have not, here's Michelle.
Thanks, Jay. Hi, everyone. If you don't know me, I've been here for a while. Just been a little bit busy doing the stuff I need to do right now, and I'm starting to get back into the game at the moment. So a little bit about myself. I am a career transitioner, like many of you are. I actually started out my first career in marketing and sales before deciding to go into software engineering via coding bootcamp. And now I'm a software engineer at Microsoft. Don't know how I got here to this day. I still pinch myself all the time. I just moved to east side of Seattle in Washington about little less than 2 months ago, I believe now. So still very new to Washington, still getting used to the rain. I used to live in sunny California, so really missing the sun lately. So I guess one of the questions was asked was what is one thing you learned this quarter? And I when I read that, I was like, I can't just boil it down to one thing that I learned this quarter. There's been a lot that I've been doing. So a couple things that I've been focusing on is design patterns. I've been following this YouTube series to learn about design patterns for kind of for architectural reasons as well. But aside from that, just realizing how different teams can work very differently. I actually just switched teams to a different team to work in Viva Connections, still in SharePoint. Did I miss anything? Yeah, feel free to ask me any questions. I'm starting to post back on LinkedIn again, so feel free to connect on me there too.
Yeah. So Michelle, I think, so one question we forgot to ask that I would love all of our speakers to just mention on, we've got a lot of people that are transitioning. They're thinking about how they can transition in their roles. Is there like a top piece of advice that you would give someone and that's trying to either join tech or get to the next level? What would be like something that maybe helped you, anything from a mindset perspective or very specifically what you think people should do in order to level up their career?
Yeah, so I actually have a couple of advice. Number one, have a support community. So if you're in MentorMesh, you already have a support community going on, but try to find a support community that works for you in this journey to change careers, to whatever roadmap path, whatever discipline you want to go with. It gets really lonely if you do it on your own. It kind of feels like you're the lone person in a desert almost. So definitely work on a support community. Maybe it's not mentor mesh, but hopefully it is. But if it's not, then find something that works for you. A couple of communities that I know of that I've personally been involved with, League of Feminist Coders. They are a great community of feminist, a lot of females, but also a lot of males who support the feminist community. And they help you with your software engineering journey. And there's other communities out there like Hack Buddy, which is a community based out of LA who work specifically, teaching about software engineering, kind of different principles and things like that. Aside from that, let's see. I had a whole list written down, but I don't have the list in front of me. So sad. It's a marathon of sprints. This is going to be a tough one. There's going to be moments where you're going to feel like you want to give up. And there's going to be moments where you have a little bit more time to yourself. Recognize when those moments are. Give yourself the breathing room. And when it's sprint time, it's sprint time. So it's go time then. Aside from that, another one is don't silo yourself into one discipline. If you are like me, who was a career transitioner from marketing and sales, for example, use your skills from your previous career. You have skills. Sometimes you just don't want to admit you have skills, and that's okay. You'll figure it out. So for me, it was, working with customers, had a lot of account management, as well as marketing as well, kind of skills that I was able to use to kind of break into tech as a developer support engineer. So yeah, those are our top 3 advice there, I guess.
That's awesome. That's all great advice. And I think you said it is a marathon of sprints. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what I said.
I love that.
Thanks. That's how I see of it as, you have moments where it's a sprint and you have life as it is. So it's a marathon of sprints.
It's so true. And it's funny because I'll talk about the importance of consistency and but it's true though. Like sometimes there are events in your life where you have to prioritize other things. And for me, when I was having my 4th daughter, that's when I really needed work-life balance. So I went to Salesforce. So I don't know if you guys know that, but Salesforce has fantastic work-life balance. You can still I made the most money I ever made in my career and had amazing work-life balance. So pay attention to the company culture that you go to. And it's true. Like if you really feel like running, go to Amazon, go to Facebook, they'll run you. But if you need a little bit more work-life balance, there are other companies that will give that to you and still let you work on good things too. Cool. Thanks, Michelle. All right, Mr. Hunter, very happy to see you here. Would love for you to introduce yourself.
Very happy to be here, Jay. Thanks for inviting me. And thanks for putting me up second so I get a chance to think about how to answer the question. So Gary Hunter, I'm Executive Director of Information Security at Disney, the Walt Disney Company. I'm part of the Disney Media Entertainment and Distribution segment, as well as being responsible for the Disney General Entertainment segment. So those things include sort of ABC News, National Geographic, the Disney Channel, all of that. Very busy. We have a small team and it keeps us on our toes continually. I'm currently in Conifer, Colorado, but I'm actually based out of Seattle. So, I hear Michelle when she says about the gray. So when COVID hit, I headed for the hills and came to Colorado to see some sun until I actually have to get back to the office. So this is where I am right now. The one thing I learned this quarter, and I thought hard about this question, again, we all learn a lot every day, but there was something that I sort of reminded myself of this quarter. Where we are right now, our organization has been going through several reorgs, changes in priorities, and it seems that we're not getting any traction. And the last couple of months, I've been getting a little disheartened about that. And, I reminded myself this week that, if you're not happy with where things are going, you either need to just get out of Dodge and find something new, or you need to really steer that change and you need to jump in and embrace that change. And honestly, I think I had lost sight of that for at least a month, and it had been weighing on me, and I'd not been feeling too great about the way things are going. But this last week or so, I've been really reinvigorated about how do we embrace the change that certain people are trying to push, and how do I steer it so that my team come out on top? So that's really something that I've known it all along, but I kind of lost sight of it. And I just reminded myself of it in these last couple of weeks. And it's really started to sort of get things moving again and help my team take control of our destiny rather than that being steered for us. So not necessarily something I learned, maybe relearned, reminded myself of, which I think was very important. So top advice to somebody who's looking for something new. I would say, don't just jump on the first thing because you think you want to be a coder and you've got this offer. Really look hard at it. I have two lists. One's the list of everything I want out of my job, out of my boss, out of my team, out of the organization. Where are they aligned to? Do they align with my ethics? Are they talking the same sort of language and really pushing the same sort of energy that I want to push in my team? And then the list of things I want to avoid, the things that I don't want to see in my boss, I don't want to see in the team, I don't want to see in the company culture or their ethics. And it makes it very easy for me to decide, is this the right thing for me or is this the wrong thing for me? I got a call a couple of weeks ago, well, a couple of months ago now, from Amazon. They were looking for somebody to lead governance, risk, and compliance globally for them. That's a really big job, and that would have been a great step up for me. But I looked at my list, and within 5 minutes, I could very quickly get back to them and say, thank you. It sounds like a great opportunity, but it's not the right move for me at this point in my career. And I turned to my wife writing the response, and I'm like, am I mad? And she's like, no, you did sort of quantify what you want and what you don't want. Yes, it might have been a lot more money, but that's not where we are right now. We want that work-life balance, and we got a lot of stuff that we need to do. So it was an easy decision because I had that list. And I also want to reiterate, MentorMesh is a great place to get advice from people. I spoke to Jay when I first resynced with Jay back at Afrotech last year. I talked to him a little bit about something that me and my peers have, and we call it our personal board of directors. It's very much like a corporation would have a board of directors. It's people from different backgrounds who can offer different perspectives for you. So it's not aligning yourself with a lot of your peers that are all thinking the same way. It's, me, I'm in information security. My personal board of directors consists of people who are in technology, who aren't technology, people who are in business, and people who know me personally. So whenever I have a big decision to make and I'm not sure which way to go, I go to all of them and get those different perspectives, especially those people who aren't working with me day to day and know me personally. And, they might say to me, that doesn't quite sound like you. I don't think that would align with you because of this, this, and this. And I may not have thought about it because I'm really just thinking about the technology or the company or whatever. So getting a diverse set of input to help you make those decisions, I think is really important as well. And one thing I wanted to say from Jay's comment earlier about interviews, I hate interviewing people because I think that 30 to 60 minute is horrible. But I love attending interviews because I like being put on the spot. I like getting those questions. I like having to think on my feet. And that's my way of testing myself on, how up to date am I with things, and can I really sort of walk the walk? And that's it from me, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. That's very, very cool. A lot of great advice. Thank you for coming and sharing. You've always been such a strong supporter of MentorMesh. And yeah, the having your own personal board of directors. My wife is definitely chair of my board because I have some crazy ideas. I'm like, let's just go do this. And she's like, nope. But as soon as I talk about taking a job in London, she's all for it. I'm like, okay, hold on. You got to keep your biases out of here too. I actually almost did took one, but with rational thinking, my 16-year-old would hate me if I pulled her out of high school, like in the middle of high school. Like that's kind of bad for her. So it didn't happen. But anyways, great advice. Absolutely. Yeah. And because when you think about Mentor Mesh too, right? Like you're going to find maybe an even smaller, close-knit circle of people that you really, really vibe with. That can be super powerful too. And don't think that being a part of Mentor Mesh is like a all or nothing thing. Like I'm a part of Product Buds. I'm a part of PM Mastermind. Join them. Networking is important. If you have an opportunity to meet people and do it. Absolutely. Mentor Mesh is just one community that's here to support you. So absolutely join the ones that fit you and not just the ones in your domain. And a couple of people have kind of hinted that too, right? You don't just want to surround yourself with people that are exactly like you. Have some diversity in there, diversity in roles, diversity in thought. You might be surprised how much you can learn from people that think very differently than you. And remember that winning and losing is not binary. There's a lot of ways to win. There's a lot of ways to win. So just because you're right doesn't mean everyone else is wrong. They can be right too. All right. So now, thank you, Michelle and Gary. Really appreciate you guys being here. Now we're going to go to our PM coaches. Now, these are also very much special guests of Mentor Mesh, but they're also people that are helping the community. As I mentioned, we're going to be releasing a product and program management bootcamp. One of the first things I'm doing is aligning several PM coaches, people that have different backgrounds, different perspectives, that have worked at all different types of different companies at different levels, to give you a different perspective. So I want to introduce Niku. Many of you have already met him through some of the Twitter spaces that we did. But yeah, Niku, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your opinions on stuff, that would be awesome.
Sweet. My opinions. So everyone, I'm Niku. I've been into Mentor Mesh for a little bit. Yes, I'm currently a product manager. I just joined Salesforce. Well, technically MuleSoft, company and a company part of Salesforce. And I'm based out of Seattle. So a little thing about me, I got into tech on a more non-traditional way. I don't really have a degree. Kind of followed a similar path to Jay, and we even joke around to where it's almost the same path, to where even the companies that we're joining are aligned on the same sequence. So let's see. I think Michelle and Gary gave some pretty solid advice there. I think one thing I would probably add is one advice is just to do the next job that you're looking for from the seat that you're in. What it just means is, like, if you want to be a software engineer, if you're like, so quick background on what I did, right? So I was in operations beforehand, and the next role that I was targeting was in software engineering. So I started coding while I was in an operations role, and I was able to deliver value, even though the code was probably not one of those spaghettiest code I've ever written, but it get the job done, right? I was able to save the company like 8 hours per week and deliver value. And I think from that, I was able to weasel my way into a software engineering role, and people kind of trusted me on it and kind of just performed. So if you can, if where you are right now allows you to have that flexibility, if you build enough career capital in your current role, whatever it may be, to where you're able to extend and take additional responsibility so that you can transition over to the next role, do it, because then you can actually have full-on actual experience on your bullet points for your next role. And of course, another advice that I usually say is try to play with your strengths and specialize first, then go breadth. Kind of goes in line with what Michelle and Gary were saying, like, don't, even if you're pretty good at coding, if that's not the thing for you, like, man, I want to try something else, don't pigeonhole yourself. Go do something else. I was a career pivoter. I basically changed like 5 roles in like 6 years. And I just did the same framework over and over. Like, hey, I went from operations, software engineering, to site reliability engineering, to program management, technical program management, and then I became a product manager. So it's doable. So yeah, I guess that's my advice there.
Cool. Thanks, man. Yeah. And it kind of goes in line with what I tell a lot of people. Like, we are not a role, right? Like we have a set of skills, and those skills can apply to so many roles. So I've done virtually very similar work in every title that I have, and I've had most every title, just like Niku. And I'm curious, Niku, did you learn nothing last quarter? Nothing? That was one of the questions. Have you learned anything last quarter?
Oh, what did I learn? I mean, I haven't really, well, onboarding my new job because there's that. But aside from that, I'm learning Spanish. So not a coding language, but I'm learning Spanish, you know? So one of the things that I've been trying to do is kind of something I do is called Build Trust Thursday. So one of the things that I'm trying to establish there is like, we have a lot of team in Argentina speak Spanish. So I want to connect with them through that. So building a relationship through that.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I don't know if I have that level of commitment to my job. Maybe mentor mesh. Maybe I will. We'll see. Cool. Thanks, man. All right. Last but definitely not least, I would love to introduce you folks to Clement. So Clement's got a fantastic history. I would love for him to introduce himself and answer some questions for you too.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. So I am Clement. I'm currently the founder of Product Teacher. And basically what we do is we help folks break in a product as well as level up as product managers, right? So whether you're a junior product manager trying to become a senior PM, or senior PM becoming director of product trying to become a VP of product, VP of product, head of product, we help with all of that, right? Really just based off of, why does product management need to be so hard, right? Like, why do we need to be holding back all these secrets? So I'm trying to document as much of my knowledge as I can and share that. And so, really, really humbled to be, here as a part of Mentor Mesh. Because yeah, like that is my mission. Like I just really want to make product management easier for everyone. Like that's just what I do. I'm currently based in Santa Clara, so just a little bit south of San Francisco. And kind of before that, I was working as a principal PM at Blend, and then before that, I was working as a group product manager at Moboto. So just in terms of things that I learned this quarter, so this ring is new. I got engaged, which is very exciting. But the thing that my fiance and I learned the hard way is if you don't make time to go plan the wedding, it is not happening. And so we originally were planning for like, we're gonna go get a summer wedding. It's not happening. And so one of the big things to learn is like knowing when to cut your losses. And then the other part is learning from your mistakes, right? So now that we know that we forgot to do the upfront planning for the wedding in the summer, we are now trying to figure out, okay, what does it mean if we want to have something in the fall? And then what does that mean in terms of working backwards, right? So we need to come up with some sort of plan. We need to go start figuring out like vendors, logistics, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so that's life for you. And I think the other thing that also really helped with is just remember to take the things that you learn at work and put it into your personal life, right? Like I know how to work backwards at work. I just forgot to do that for my wedding, right? And it's like, oh, well, that's kind of sad. So one of the things that you'll find incredibly valuable is the things that you learn in your personal life, you can always apply at work. And the things that you learn at work can always apply to your personal life, right? And so really the way to think about your time here as part of this community is not just, hey, I'm trying to learn how to break into tech, but how do I build better relationships with others? How do I build a better relationship with myself, right? Kind of how do I have more of the empathy for myself and to help other people grow and to really build these meaningful relationships and kind of uplift everyone together, right? So again, just like really humbled to be here as a part of the community. I guess just in terms of piece of advice to break into tech. So I was actually originally starting as a user researcher and I accidentally became a product manager. And you're probably not gonna believe this story, but it's true. The way I became a product manager was I took notes. That's it, it was that simple. And to provide a little bit of background, what happened was at that point in time in the organization that I was in, one of the things that was very challenging is that we would have all these, executive meetings where we would talk about, hey, where do we want the business to go? What are the things that we see as really large risks? Kind of what are the things we want to go get done? But these meetings were never documented. Like there were never any meeting notes. There was never any accountability. And so what we would do is month after month, we would go over the same points over and over again. And it's like, oh, but we already talked about this thing like 3 months ago. It's like, oh, well, what did we decide? We don't remember. No one documented it. So I started to take those notes and I then sent out the notes to my CEO and my CFO, my CMO, et cetera. And they started realizing, oh, Clement is not just a user researcher. He's helping us get our stuff done, right? Kind of, I was using this influence without authority, right? Like I'm not authorized to go make decisions for my CEO and my CFO, et cetera, but I was helping them make better decisions by locking in the knowledge that we had already discussed in those meetings together, right? And so I'm not saying that the only way to become a product manager is to take notes. Like that's too basic. But the overarching principle there is if you want value for yourself, first, create value for others, right? And you've already heard this theme from all of our speakers and from Jay himself over and over again, right? If you want a hiring manager to pay attention to you, it's not about, I want this particular job, it's what pain are they in? Like, what is the thing that they really wish was solved, right? Because if they have a job open, it's because they're struggling. Like they can't get a pain solved right now. And so if you can identify to them, this is the thing that they're struggling with, and you can help them with that, then they're going to be more eager to pay attention to you, right? Similarly, if you are reaching out to someone who is, if you're reaching out to someone because you want to mentor, then that's really helpful is to identify the people who are currently in pain and who really want mentees, right? Like it's much easier to get a mentor if that person's looking for mentees, and it's a lot harder if they're not, right? And so it's all about looking for the value that other people need and providing it to them. And then that way you're able to get that value for yourself, right? If you want to spin up these different group projects, right? Like again, as part of Mentor Mesh, the thing that will help to attract people's attention is to identify that, hey, well, you've got a pain that's going unsolved. Let me help you with that, right? And so, these coffee chats, right? Learning out loud together, right? Kind of all these different programs, because they provided value for others, that then got them to join, and that created value for the organizers, right? And so kind of take this overarching approach to anything that you do, and you'll go far, right? What is the value that I can create for other people? Because once I've created value for them, then they're going to want me to succeed, right? Because then I can give more value to them over and over and over again, right? So it's all about this kind of servant leadership, and kind of the most successful businesses out there, they succeed because they create value for others, right? The businesses that kind of fall apart, they're the ones who are over optimized on like, I want profits right now, I want revenue right now. Right? So it's all about what is the value that I can provide to someone else, and that will get you really, really far, kind of no matter where you want to go. So that would be my like overarching piece of advice for sure.
Thank you, Clement. Those are all great tips. And I even love the last thing. I'll probably share more with you guys later, but even that whole thing, like for businesses that prioritize making profits over their customers' experience, talk about a missed opportunity. Like focus on the experience of your users and the profits come. If you flip that conversation, competitors will come steal your people. Somebody else is going to care about them more. So yeah, great people, great advice. Really appreciate you being here. Hey, Gary, you had a comment?
I did. Clement's comment about his wedding reminded me of something, and it was really, there's nothing wrong with working hard, but don't let work take over your life, right? I learned far too late. I'm getting towards the end of my career, and it wasn't until, Jay and I were at Expedia together. When I was at Expedia, I was working 12, 14-hour days, had a 90-minute commute either end of that. So, I never got to see my family, right? So that lasted for 3 years. I got to Disney and then learned what work really should be, what work-life balance should be. If you've had a few weeks of working really hard, take the team to Disneyland and have a day in the park, right? That's what really work should be. And that's really what I look for in whatever my next opportunity is now. And I really wanted to drive home, you shouldn't let work overtake your life to the point that maybe you forget to plan your wedding. You got to make time for your family, and yes, work hard. I'm not saying you shouldn't work hard, but know where to draw that line, and keep that in your forefront so you don't lose sight of that.
Yeah, that's great advice. And it kind of even goes back to Michelle's point about a marathon of sprints. Sometimes it is not the time. Now is not the time. Maybe you should take a break and focus on other things for a while. Absolutely. Because life is going to happen whether you want it to happen or not while you're working. So definitely. Okay, cool. So we're at the end of our content, but we've got some very powerful speakers here. I told you folks about the importance of networking and meeting people. One great way to meet people is to ask them questions, because they'll remember you if you approach them later and say, hey, I was the person that asked you that question. And they'll say, oh yeah, okay. So we've got some great speakers here. If you have any questions, anything you want to dive into, something that they said, now is a great opportunity for them to know who you are and to start to build a relationship with some of these people. So take it as that. All right, Candace, what's on your mind?
Hi, and thank you to all of our speakers. My question is for Gary. Gary, so you mentioned that, you got to a point where you were thinking about, I should leave, or I need to do something to sort of change what is going on. And you mentioned something along the lines of, how do I make sure that my team comes up on top in the midst of all of, the change going on? So how do you do that? What are I guess some strategies to make sure that your team is effective in the midst of all of the change that's going on?
To me, in this current situation, it was to really embrace the change and to volunteer to pilot the changes first. So to have that seat at the table first, to help shape the way this is going to go. If my team were, say, the third or fourth team to jump on this, it would have already been shaped, and we're just going to have to go along with what everybody else wants. But if we are there at the forefront, really giving our requirements in, making sure that the new processes, the new systems provide us exactly what we want, then we're going to be successful at the end of this. And the only way to do that is by being there right at the bat and working hand in hand with the people who are trying to implement this. And I think the thing that I remembered was way back in the year 2000, we were starting to offshore a lot of our jobs. They were moving to India. And I remember being in a team meeting once, and I was just a lonely developer, very entry level. And everybody around this big team meeting, I think there were about 30 or 40 people, they were all complaining about, we're all going to lose our jobs. It's all going to India. And I just stood up and said, look, you can either be part of the change. This is going to happen, whether you want it to happen or not. You can either help it happen and help it be successful for the company, or you will not be at this table in a year's time. So I volunteered. I went out to India for 6 months. I trained up the guys in the programming language. I stayed at that company another 10 years. And most of the people who were complaining around that table were gone by the next year. And that was the thing I really remembered this time. And it really sort of jolted me into action. I've got to help make this change successful.
Thanks for sharing that. And that's definitely a good way to look at it, is to, be the first to try it out, and then you can kind of have some impact or control over, what's going on in the beginning. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it's funny, if I could add really quickly, if you work for a fast-paced company or a big tech company, you're going to be reorged like every 6 months. So if you're not happy with change, don't join a leading company, because I actually learned those. I didn't know that when I got to Expedia. Expedia was my first big tech company experience. Oh my goodness. Every 6 months, I would have a new manager. There would be a new org. We'd have a new CTO. There'd be a new leader. And that leader comes with their own baggage and their own process and their own way. And you had to adapt or not. I was so mad the first time, because remember, this is younger Jay. This is young, violent, fiery Jay, right? That's what Expedia experienced. I built a team of 20 engineers. We were kicking butt. Everything was good. Then we got a new CTO. And then he told me I had to split my team and I had to pick a side. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I built this team. I had to pick analytics or I had to pick tools. And I was like, I wanted both. What do you mean I have to pick? And so I had to pick one. And there was all this stuff that happened and things that were out of my control. And it was going to happen, like Gary said, whether I liked it or not. But I had to, I'm kicking and screaming the whole time. And then I realized that, over time, you realize this happens like every company, every 6 months. Like the company is constantly trying to align in order to perform better. Like nobody is trying to hurt you. Nobody's trying to mess up Jay's team. That wasn't it. Somebody from a different advantage point felt like a change was needed, and they weren't right or wrong. It was just, their decision to make, not mine. So I learned this over time. And so even when I coach younger versions of myself, I tell them it's not about being the smartest in the room. Many of you will hear me say that. Can you bring people with you? Me kicking and screaming didn't help anybody. It actually just made me look like an immature leader. With a couple of people told me that, and I remember being extra offended. But you know what? Over time, I get it now, because it's not about that. You've got to win as a team. You've got to figure that out. And Gary's advice is on point. If you don't like the change, go help lead it. Then you can influence it. So awesome advice. Linda, what's on your mind? You understand violence? We talked about that. I'm going to keep referencing this Twitter space she was in that we were just laughing. It was a good time. Not actual violence. I'm just kidding.
Oh, Jay. So my question is for Michelle. I had sent her a message, but I think the group might appreciate hearing this too. Could you talk more about your transition from marketing and sales to software engineering? You kind of just said you transitioned, but we didn't hear your story.
Yeah, I didn't want to take up too much time going into that, honestly, and that's why I didn't want to include that. But the story is it was a long one. It took a really long time to actually do, and there was a lot of effort spent into it, a lot of lessons, which is why I'm imparting a lot of them to you. So essentially what happened was when I had gone out of my last role in marketing, I was very unhappy where I was, didn't like where my marketing career was going, didn't even really like the previous company I was going in, and was mostly because of the industry itself, financial services. Surprise, surprise, such a formal environment's not a good thing for me. Realize that. So that was a very painful lesson I learned, that I'm not really into that sort of environment. And after that, it was a really long, I think 3 or 4 months of like, what do I want to do that kind of will kind of change things up, make me happy. And to go on a personal kind of note here, marketing was not something I actually chosen for myself. It was something that was kind of thrust onto me, telling me that, oh, you'd be good at this and you can do this. And that was something I did in college. And that's why I continued doing it for several years. And I had always had software engineering in the back of my mind. It was a hobby. I did like a college class in it. I did a couple, Udemy courses, a couple books here and there to kind of see if I was interested in it. And then after that, in that 3-4 months, I told myself, I'm going to try this out. If it doesn't work out in like a year or whatever arbitrary timeline you want to give yourself, then I'll think of something else. And at that point, there was a lot of make this impossible thing possible, because again, going on a personal note, my family at that point was very unapproving of my career choice to go into software engineering. And if any of you know Asian parents, they can be extremely judgmental. And essentially, they rejected the idea of me going into software engineering, rejected the idea of going into master's for software engineering even. And that was what I was passionate about. But long story short, I decided to try the coding bootcamp, see if I liked it. And, like Jay was saying, really liked the structure of it. I was doing, I was spending like a good 70 hours a week at the coding bootcamp. And I was just like, man, this is fun. I love it. I'm really liking what I'm doing here. And it was just a good time. And I might have said this before, but I also met my significant other at my coding bootcamp. Not related, but it does impact a little bit, I suppose. And then it was, after once you graduate, it was like, what do I want to do now? And that's where I started. And then I found a job as a developer support engineer, which the way how I like to explain that job was kind of a blend between account management, customer service / working with investigating customer issues and stuff like that, kind of like a technical support in a way. And then after that, during that year, I was also really hammering down on coding. It was basically my second job coding. And I applied to the LEAP apprenticeship program from Microsoft. It took me 3 attempts to get in, but I finally did. And after that, yeah, I'm here as a FTE at Microsoft, full-time employee at Microsoft. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
That's super cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it also even kind of emphasizes just because you get rejected doesn't mean that you can't get in. The interview process is tough. It's tough. It's not fair. It's inconsistent. Just because you fail an interview does not mean that you don't have a place in that company. The first time I applied at Expedia, they rejected me for sure. Absolutely. But a lot of it was because I had no idea about the interview process of big tech companies. I'd never been in one. I was not prepared. But I learned, right? You learn something from those failures and then you come back stronger. So thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Linda.
All right. So so forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong. Is Balwinder?
Yes, Jay Balwinder. I was there at the Twitter Spaces yesterday, but I'm here talking today to you guys. Glad to be here. Eileen brought me over to Mentor Mesh, and I'm glad she did that. So I have a tech background, a tech degree, took a break in between to raise my boys. They had developmental delays is where I took that break. Trying to get back now, and it's not easy to say the least. But I am, cloud computing is where I found my love. While getting back, did work for Amazon in a different capacity during pandemic, just to keep myself busy. That's when I was ready to get back. AWS started off with the cloud practitioner certification and did my associate in solution architecture and try to pivot over there. But, and I have interviewed with Microsoft, got to the loop, didn't quite make it, but that's a learning thing too. But my question today, and I've been talking to Eileen and she knows me well enough by now, is where she was like, given your personality and given your background, product management could be one of the things you could look into. And I've barely started looking into it. I'm going to explore more, but at the same time, Michelle, I know you were talking about, and I do take your point wherein you're saying don't silo yourself in just one little corner and one little part. And since you are looking into the design aspect of things too, and solution, I don't know if that's like purely solution architecture or like other design aspect of things you're talking about, but and I don't even know who to address this question to. Is there some overlap between solution architecture and product management, or those are two separate things, or how would I even go about exploring this particular space as a beginner?
So I definitely have a perspective. I'm curious what Clement would have to say about this. He is our resident product teacher. What do you think?
Sure, yeah. So I think, so solution architecture is kind of like, it's a little bit more technical, right? Because you're really digging deep into kind of all of the technical components, really trying to understand like what are all of the different constraints that like make up the solution that you're trying to go build. But it is actually a very natural transition into product. We actually saw a lot of people become technical product managers at Blend, like my previous employer, because they had this really interesting depth into kind of like the technical side of the house, but like really deeply understanding all of the different constraints that make up a system, and then also really deeply understanding the customer, right? Because ultimately, when you're trying to build out these different solutions, they need to work for the customer, and that gives you that really deep empathy, right? I think that the places where you would need to kind of further strengthen that like overall portfolio of skills to move into product is being able to look further into the future in terms of strategy and vision, right? So kind of with solution architecture, a lot of it's kind of the immediate implementation and then maybe the maintenance of it, but not so much like how do you evolve it? How do you make it more scalable into kind of all of these different applications? And then also how do you turn this into a strategic revenue generator that like enables the company to go pursue other things and like not just this one particular instance for this one particular customer, right? And so in terms of helping move from solution architecture to product, one of the things that you can do is for the current set of work that you're doing, consider tackling scalability initiatives. Like, hey, we implemented this thing once before or like twice. How would we abstract this so that that way we can implement it over and over and over again using less and less development work, using less and less custom wiring, and then kind of prove out that business case and pitch that to executives, right? Hey, if you give me 2 software engineers and 1 designer, I can then build this interface that then allows us to create this capability of being able to like redeploy this solution over and over again. And that's kind of a really natural progression into product, right? So especially like more like technical product. So it's definitely a really strong path into product because you've got basically 2 of the 3 corners of product done. Like the way that I think about product is it's really 3 parts. It's about deeply understanding the customer, their pains, their workflows, their processes, their systems, then really understanding your designers and engineers in terms of what are the different things that they're working with, and then understanding like your business in terms of go-to-market, profitability, return on investment for investors, et cetera. And so I'd say for solution architecture, you've got the customer side and the design and engineering side. The side that you need to further strengthen is more of that business side. And so focusing on scalability, focusing on like on offense strategy and road mapping, I think will really help to round that out and help to demonstrate to either your current team or future employers that like, hey, product management is a really natural fit. So hopefully that provides some insight into kind of how to make that transition.
Yeah, and I do have a customer service manager like background as well, wherein like within tech, I have worked with, like it was a role wherein I was dealing with the sales team, training a different team. It was way back, but one of my very first jobs was that, and even talking to the customers directly and kind of tying in and giving the feedback wherein the manufacturing was happening with, I mean, those were pager days, like alphanumeric, numeric pages, but definitely challenging at that time, right coming out of engineering school. You know, you don't really learn those customer management skills. I mean, and that wasn't me. Like right now I can talk to anybody, do whatever and all of that, but it was a little hard. And moreover, getting into that management right away out of you know, school and being in India, and you know, it was a little different culture as well, but
yeah,
that aspect of it, I do have that down. I am working towards, but I was like, okay, where is that intersection? And if that is one of the like avenues I want to venture out, what else do I need to do? And thank you for those points, because scalability, looking into things strategically as to where, and would you say DevOps kind of ties into that, say Terraform, if you're doing the same deployment over and over again and doing it that way, does that play a role? No, or that's a totally different thing?
So I think to paint a little bit of a distinction, right? So kind of if you're looking more at the DevOps side, I think that's more of like the repeatability and implementation side of the house. And so then that kind of moves you more towards the engineering profile.
Oh, okay.
If you're looking more for like the product profile, you want to look at what are the different use cases that I can attack, right? So what are the different markets that I can go after? What are the different customers I can go after? How would I abstract whatever I'm doing to then be customer facing for different kinds of customers or different kinds of industries? And then basically prove out that here's a revenue opportunity, right? I think as unfortunate as it is, a lot of product orgs, they prioritize revenue over cost savings, even though ultimately a dollar is a dollar at the end of the day for a company. And so just like based on the way that folks are thinking about it, you'll get farther by talking about here are the additional revenue opportunities that we can attack, rather than here are the cost savings that we can go after, even though I know at the end of the day, a dollar is a dollar, right? So just keep that in mind as you think about how to position the value add of the work that you're doing, so that way kind of product leadership can understand what you're doing to the table.
All right. So the same product, how can we make it, or maybe come up with a POC, like this is where the newer use case could be, and that could target a newer customer base or a newer market. Right. And okay, I get it. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks a lot. That helps a lot.
So I definitely have something to add here, but I want to hear Gary's comment because his hand shot up. So I think he's got something to add.
I think you can do, if you want to go into solution architecture, you should really sort of align yourself with the product teams closely. Before I moved into security, I had the title enterprise architect, but I really was a solutions architect. And I used to fly around the country with my product team. We were working at a travel distribution company, and we were trying to understand where the airline industry wanted to go with ancillary services. So things like a different price for every seat on the plane if you want to reserve it, baggage fees, charging for meals, or anything extra that they wanted to charge for on the plane. We had very legacy systems that didn't really cater to what they wanted to do. So as a solutions architect, I had people in my team who never left their desk. But for me, it was to align myself with the product team, get on those planes, go and talk to the CTOs of the airlines, understand where they were trying to drive their future to, and really provide technical solutions that would sustain that, and not only provide what they wanted today, but hear what they wanted tomorrow and start moving towards that. So when I was in that role, I was an extension of the product team and really trying to help deliver things that would sustain them for the future. So if you move into that role, I think it's something you can shape for yourself. And if you're that aligned with the product team, it would be a very easy migration across it if that's what you wanted to do.
Thank you for that, Gary. That really does help. And I am that person who would be like, it's not like I'm just sitting behind the desk and coming up with a solution and that's that. I would rather just collaborate with other teams and kind of go that route rather than just, yeah. So that helps most definitely.
So I'll add one quick thought and then we'll get to Sayer's hand. She's been very patient. So I won't be long-winded. But I want to add a very quick perspective when it comes to transition, because I think this is a very interesting thing that people always ask. They say, I'm going to do this job. Will it help me get that job? How is the transition between this and that? Now, here's a point that this is my experience, and this is what I would argue. Anytime you hire someone, you're hiring them based on trust. Now, you might get that trust from the fact that they have an MBA. Maybe that gives you a signal that you think that means they know something that you need. You might get trust based on the previous titles that they've had. They've been a product manager before, and so maybe that's why you trust that they could do a good job. But at the end of the day, a hiring manager is making a decision based on trust, not on fact. Even the interview, I could lie the entire time during my interview and you're not going to fact check. Are you going to go check with my colleagues? No, you're going to take me at face value. So at the end of the day, when you interview for a role and you're looking to transition, that is based on trust. So the message I'm trying to say is if you want to move to product or join any team doing anything, the number one thing that you can do to do that is to build trust with that team. Now, it might be that your current role has overlap with product because product is very broad. Product to product, we care about the success of the product. And there's a lot of ways to get that. There's data in that. There's analytics in that. There's execution in that. There's customer relationships. That's a part of that. There's operational knowledge that could help you depending on your product, right? I think product is one of those roles that a lot of backgrounds have a little bit of crossover in. But at the end of the day, if you want that job, you have to be able to build trust with those leaders. They will make roles for you. And so one of the things I always tell people to do is network within your company. If you're interested in product, do you know the product team? If you're already in that company, there's a good likelihood that they will respond to you, talk to you. You can learn about what they do. We talked earlier about finding ways to help people, right? Find an excuse to help the product team. Try to do something with them, help them. You might find that you like the job more or less by building that relationship. And eventually they're going to know that you're interested in product and they might even make a role for you. And for me, that happened 3 times. So I'm talking out of experience here. If they like you, they trust you, you give an opportunity, you show them your work ethic, you can transfer internally. And a lot of times, yes, your current role might help you, but at the end of the day, if they've had a taste of working with you and they can trust that you're going to learn and you're passionate about it and you're a good, reliable person. I think Niku used the term career capital, right? You build that reputation inside your company, it could take you anywhere. And because of that, like even in my career, I'm confident that I could have any title. You know, when I was at Peloton, I led the data science team. I'm not a data science expert. That's not why I was hired. I was a trusted product leader. So they trusted me also to lead the data science team. I did not have to go get a background in data science. I had enough career capital that they trusted me to lead something new. And in tech, you're always going to be leading something new. Tech changes all the time. The jobs that we have today will be named something different tomorrow. As more and more things become automated, our jobs are going to start to transition to different jobs, not go away. They're going to be different. And so your ability to adapt matters more than your domain expertise a lot of times. So I would definitely say, if you want to be in product, one of the key things you need to do is build relationships with product leaders, not just inside your company, but outside your company. Because what you're doing is building trust. And once you get enough trust, they will take a chance on you. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Clement. It's immensely helpful, and I'm so glad that I'm here. Thank you, Eileen.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you, Eileen, for inviting you.
Yeah.
All right, Sayer, thank you for being patient. You're up.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jay. Always appreciate your perspectives on things. So my question isn't particularly about any positioning tech, but more about negative self-talk. And I kind of just want to double click on that, because that's something that I've been more intentional about overcoming in the last year or so, more than the previous 28 years of my life. And I know a lot of people in Mentor Mesh deal with the same challenges at different points in their career. So my question for everyone in this room is, what are your experiences with, negative self-talk, and what kind of, transformation you've made in that area of your life throughout your career transition, and any tips and revelations or anything that you think will be helpful for folks here? And feel free to
I
take
guess
a
I
minute.
I guess I can start. So one of the things that I do in terms of like one-on-one coaching is actually this negative self-talk component, because it does actually slow a lot of folks down in terms of being willing to take those chances in breaking into a new role, or even being able to step up into a new role, or being able to move into a new organization, or to take risks and tackle things, right? So it's actually really, really important. And I think the great news is that half the battle is won, because you actually already have the self-awareness of, hey, I am experiencing this negative self-talk. For a lot of folks, they might not even realize that they are talking to themselves negatively. And that's what's causing a lot of friction and creating a lot of these illusions or myths or stories that they buy into of, I'm not good enough for XYZ reason, right? So I think part one is you're already self-aware, and that is incredibly, incredibly important. And you need to give yourself credit for that, right? So that's part one. But then part two is kind of, how do you start to change some of it? And for me personally, I think one of the things that is incredibly valuable is to treat that negative self-talk as though that person were my friend, or that person were my brother, and really take the time to interview them and ask, why are you talking to me in this way, right? Kind of, what are you trying to protect me from? Because when you're giving yourself this negative self-talk, a lot of it is you trying to protect yourself from something. It's just that you haven't realized what it is yet, right? So as an example, I've written a bunch of articles on product management, and something that I still run into, even though I've written like literally more than 100 times, is, Clement, no one's going to read this article. Why is anyone ever going to trust you, right? And when I ask myself, like I ask that negative self-talking part of my voice, why are you saying this, right? Well, they'll say, well, Clement, it's because I'm really scared about being rejected, right? Well, Clement, it's because I'm really scared about, people showing negative comments. Or, oh, well, Clement, because I'm worried that, you're going to say something that's going to make you look dumb, and then everyone's going to see that in public you look dumb. And kind of by asking the part of you that is giving you that negative self-talk and treating them with empathy, right? Like trying to understand, what are your pains, right? Like, why are you talking to me in this way? That really helps to unlock this more positive interaction with yourself. Whereas instead of trying to suppress the negative self-talk, right? Because I've tried that before and it doesn't work. Suppressing it only makes them angrier. It makes them feel unheard. It makes them feel like you don't care, right? Like they're trying to protect you. And so taking the time to talk to them and interview them and be like, hey, well, what are you trying to protect me from? Like, what are the things that you're worried about? What are the things that you're fearful of? by taking the time to understand that, then the two of you can actually sit down and come up with a game plan, right? So as an example, a game plan that me and my negative self-talk one comes up with, right, is, okay, well, Clement, you're going to publish this article on this particular topic, and you're really worried that you're going to look dumb in front of hundreds or thousands of people. What if, let me propose to you a different plan. What if we take the time, let's call up one of our mentees and let's talk them through this framework and see whether they think it actually makes sense to them. And if they say, oh, well, that makes perfect sense, well then, okay, cool. Like, I'm less worried now that you're going to be posting this everywhere, right? Or let's say, hey, well, Clement, I'm really scared about you trying to, take that interview for that job that you're clearly underqualified for, because I don't want you to feel shame, or like, I don't want you to feel like you've wasted your time when you could have just been working, right? And so, okay, well, I hear that you're concerned about that interview part. Well, what if instead of trying to worry about, taking this interview, let's go do some mock interviews, right? Because in that way, then I'll be more prepared, right? And so really taking that time to talk to your negative self-talk in this more compassionate way to understand, like, what are the pains that they have? What are the fears that they're trying to prevent you from falling into? And then working together with them to come up with a game plan to mitigate those risks. That is incredibly valuable. And that will really help you build this more empathetic relationship with yourself in a way where you're not trying to muzzle it, right? Like, you definitely don't want to try to suppress it. It will get worse, I promise you that. I've done that way too many times. But rather taking the time to interview them is really, really helpful, right? So that's just my own 2 cents on what I found to be particularly valuable. So hopefully that is actionable advice for you. Yeah.
Thank you. That is super helpful, because I think I really like how actionable it is, and how treating the situation with self-love and trying to understand why you're feeling that way and actually finding ways to actively address it. Because I think one of the things that trigger my self-talk is feeling like I'm trying too hard, and then that coming across where, like, I have this fear that because I'm so passionate, I want this really bad. It comes across in a way that it turns people off. Or sometimes I also feel like, because English is my second language, so sometimes when I'm wordsmithing my follow-up language, my follow-up messages, I'll take like an hour just to write like a small paragraph, because I feel like my communication was not good enough, even though, like, I am in a management position, and I work in professional services in consulting, and it's just like, why do I do that to myself, right? And so, and I think one takeaway I can have from your advice is, maybe it's okay for me to send it to a close friend and just have someone take a read at my message, and without spending so much time like spinning the wheels, and just have someone to validate that, and knowing that, okay, like, you're doing fine, and also really trying to understand why I have that fear at the first place, and tackle it that way.
Yeah, totally, exactly. And there are lots of other techniques that you can use, but like, I also want the other folks to be able to ask their questions, share their experiences. There are an arsenal of techniques that you can use to track your own successes, right? Speak more empathetically to that self-talk component. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me with questions later, and I'm more than happy to kind of share kind of that broader range of techniques, because yeah, like, it is a really, really big pain. And I think, just real quick for everyone here, something that you're going to find for the rest of your career is, paradoxically and kind of toxically, the more successful you become, the worse your imposter syndrome is going to get, and the bigger your self-talk negativity is going to be. And the reason for that is because there is more at stake, right? Like, you are able to help a lot more people. You're visible to a lot more people. And so it is going to get worse. And so what I want to do is set that expectation right now, because I think a lot of folks, they feel like, oh, I'm theoretically more successful, but my self-talk is getting worse, so does it mean that I'm failing? It's no. The fact that your self-talk is getting worse is proof that you're making progress, right? So just have that expectation for yourself, right? Like, having negative self-talk is not a negative thing. It is you trying to protect yourself in ways that are maybe not being expressed in the most productive way, but is still meant to help you make the most impact and keep you connected with the values that you care about, and to protect the people that you care about, including yourself, right? So just know that it will get worse, and that's not a bad thing. What's most important is having the techniques and the mindsets to work together with it, rather than trying to suppress it. So yeah.
That's really good advice, Clement. It's a very interesting way to look at it. And of course, for those that don't know, From Fraud to Freedom. Check it out. This will help you too. You know, it's interesting too, like Sarah, I definitely can relate to what you're saying. And what I've learned throughout my career is that, you know, sometimes when you're making these big choices, you feel like you need to gain the approval of the world in order to be successful. And you feel like if everyone doesn't see you as a success, then maybe you shouldn't be there. But the reality is, even like what Clement says, the more successful you become, the more haters you have too. The more people that are going to point at you and say, I wouldn't do it that way. Why did you do that? So you're never going to get to this place where everyone around you is just going to accept you and love you for everything that you do. There's always going to be people out there picking at you. And what I found is that I've been in some companies and I'm a rock star. Out the gate, they love me to death. And then I go to another company and they could care less what I had to say. They paid me more money and cared even less about what I had to say. And that was a culture thing, right? And it's hard to not to internalize that. Like, wait a minute, I thought I was really good. Why do I come here? And I guess I'll be very specific. So Expedia made me feel like a rock star. I went to Microsoft and they did not care at all what I had to say. They paid me more money, did not care what I had to say. And then I go to other companies, different cultures, different environments. So you can't internalize that because materially, I'm still the same person. How could I be good for one company and horrible for another? Right? Cultures are different. People are different. The way they think is different. You don't need the approval of the world. You just need that opportunity, that one opportunity, or that two opportunity. And what I've learned is the world is filled with opportunities, different culture, different people that will appreciate your value. And you don't have to prove your value to everyone. Everyone, forget everyone. Someone will, and someone will see your value. You just need to find that organization, that person. And if you can't find it, you build that organization yourself. The hater's always going to hate. That's what they do. All
Thanks,
right.
Jay, for always reminding us of that.
Yeah. I got a lot of haters. I got a lot of them. I'm sure they're just waiting for me to fall over. I don't care. So Vishaka, I had you as our last one, but then I saw, oh, actually, Michelle, did you want to say something about this conversation?
I do. I actually have to drop off really quick here pretty soon, but I do want to add my 2 cents into it. I can't possibly follow up with what Clement and Jay had to say, but I'll share a little bit of what I've learned is that psychological biases. That is something that is apparently something I do a lot. And there's different kinds of psychological biases. There's one that says, just because you do badly on one thing, for example, algorithms, means you're terrible as a software engineer. I think there's a lot of different biases out there, and you can kind of put some research into seeing which ones kind of resonate with you more. And it kind of goes into it a little bit into imposter syndrome, I think, because it kind of affects your thinking in that way. And second thing, have faith in yourself. It takes a lot to do that, but the more you level up, the more you go there, like Clement said, the more you'll feel like, oh my God, I'm such an imposter. And something I've learned is that just have faith in yourself. If you don't know one thing right now, you'll learn how to do it tomorrow, or you'll learn how to do it next month, whatever it is, but you will learn how to do it. So have faith in yourself. Anyways, that's it.
Can I just add to that, Jay? You know, when I moved from the travel industry to Expedia, I was a solutions architect, moved to a principal security architect. When the CISO of Expedia asked me to take that role, I was like, I can't do that. I'm a solutions architect. How could I be that senior person in information security? But I saw it as a good opportunity. It scared the hell out of me. I took the leap, and within 18 months, I was director of 3 of those security teams. So what Michelle said, have faith in yourself and just take the leap and make it happen.
That's all great advice. The worst thing that will happen is that you'll learn a lesson. You know, you take that lesson, take the lesson and incorporate that into your next decision, you know? Cool. All right. Thank you for everybody for sticking around. So Vishaka, would love to hear your question or comment.
Thank you. Thanks, Clement and Gary, Michelle. I think so much valuable advice and just actionable takeaways. So quick context, I had a introduction call with one of my top 10 companies yesterday. And it was just an intro call. It was not an interview. But I had insane anxiety before, like 15 minutes before. And I was like, I'm going to faint in front of this man. I'm 100% going to faint. And I'm sure there are so many people out there who feel this just before the call. You're really well prepared. You know your things. You know that this is a good opportunity. But do you have advice? Like, what do you do before an interview to feel like you're not going to fall down on the floor in front of that man? Any advice would be super helpful for a lot of us here. Meditations there. Okay. I'm going to try that next time.
You know, when I applied for Disney, I didn't particularly care for the role. I just applied for the sake of it. And I went through the first round of interviews. I was really relaxed because I didn't want the role. For the second round of interviews with the CTO and SVPs and everybody, I knew at that point I wanted the role. And then I was just like nervous as hell. They flew me down to Burbank. It was with senior executives. And it's like, oh my God, I've got to get this role. I've really got to get it. And that's where the nerves set in. But I think if you can get over the fact that you want it more than they want you, right? It's like, just go into it. And it's like, if you get it, you get it. Just try and stay as relaxed as possible. If this company doesn't work, you know, you said it was top 10, there's 9 others, right? So you try and relax and just try and think they need you more than you need them. And if you can get to that state of mind, you will relax, you will be yourself, and you will come across just natural, and you know, they'll snap you up.
Okay, that is helpful. Just remove that sort of power balance that we already have in our minds. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one thing to keep in mind is exactly what Gary said. Don't treat this like your last opportunity. It's not. You're going to have another shot, even if you fail this one. And I totally relate to what Gary's saying. Like when you walk into an interview, you're like, I don't care if I get this job. You can talk off the hip. It doesn't matter. You're not concerned. But then you find out that you want the job. Then it's like, oh man, now I'm stressing. Did anything really change? Nothing changed. The only thing that changed was your perspective. So I love that advice. But I think just keep in mind, like, it's okay to fail, because even if you fail that interview again, like all you're doing is learning for the next one, and you'll have another shot. You will have another shot. Yeah, totally. It's a tough one. And then practice. I think with interviews too, the interview process is horrible. It's not good. It's subjective. That's one thing to keep in mind too, because you may be performing admirably and still fail simply because someone else they had already had in mind to hire.
Right.
Or maybe that person just a little bit better than you from their perspective, not even that they are, from their perspective. Because I've definitely, anybody that's been a hiring manager, there's been times where it's not clear who you should hire. There's like 2 or 3 candidates and it's like, man, how do you make that call? You only got one role, you know? So somebody's going to lose. 2 people are going to lose. I remember I hired an intern and, you know, so I hired an intern one time at Expedia. But we had 3 really good interns. Like we could have hired any of them. Now I would like to think I don't have this kind of authority, but the one that we did hire ended up becoming a senior data scientist at LinkedIn. And sometimes I wonder about the other 2 that I could have hired. Had they got that role at Expedia, would they have? I hope they're doing good, whatever they're doing, because they were really sharp. Like we honestly could have hired any of them. And that easily could be your situation, right? You could go in there and do amazing and still not get the role. So there's an element of time and chance that it happens to everybody. So a lot of it, so much of it is mindset. You got to go into it with the learning attitude, practice as much as you can, but some of it is a numbers game. You may not get it this time. You may have to try again, you know?
Marathon.
Absolutely. A marathon of sprints. Yeah.
Thank you.
Vishaka, just one thing I wanted to add that I learned this week. I got massive anxiety before talking to someone at the AWS machine learning team who got back to me. And the night before I talked to him, I realized, shoot, this is actually an interview, even though it was just an initial conversation with the hiring manager that I did a cold reach out to and he responded. I thought it was going to be casual. And then last minute, I was freaking out. So I was talking to my husband, I was just like freaking out. And he's like, okay, like what are the top 3 things you want him to walk away from the conversation with? What are those 3 things? And you just tell me that right now and practice. And so I did that with my husband, and he is like, no matter what comes out of this conversation, like you have your family, you have your support, you're gonna keep exploring, everything is good, like life is good. So just going and just tell him what you want to tell him. Like that's all you got to do. And so I think just simplify your mission, you know, in that conversation, like what are the 3 things you want that person to walk away with, and actually just practice those 3 things as if you're talking to that person already. I think that that's a very like technical thing that maybe you could do to help.
That is fantastic.
And
Like,
the
that
other
way
thing,
you know. Sorry, go ahead.
the other thing I do, we're doing virtual interviews now. So I have my iPad up, right? And I have the scenarios that I want to go through that will show the different skills that I have, so that when I get the question, I'm not going to go blank. I can just glance down and I've got the bullets that will remind me to get to those things. And I also have the bottom half of that is a list of questions to ask them, so that I always have those really interesting questions to ask, so that when it gets to that point, I don't go blank. I can just quickly glance down and it keeps me on point.
Got it.
So Vashaka, you were saying that the 15 minutes, like the 15 minutes before the interview, you were about to faint.
Yeah, I was panting.
If you're like, if it's the 15 minutes before though, go do power poses, like Superman poses, like go in front of the mirror and, you know, do your poses and psych yourself up, you know, and like, so, you know, like, bam, when you get on the screen, like you will have been like a super, like
rewiring your mindset,
you know, and that'll get you there mentally, you know, I think anyway, that's what I do. So
fantastic advice.
And then I just wanted to say to Sayer, I have never heard a rapper on a rap song that had imposter syndrome. They are the most hype people. You can't tell them nothing. They can do anything. Girl, you need a playlist. Get you a playlist. When you feel in some kind of way, put your playlist on. You can conquer the world, child. Use music therapy. I have a friend who actually has a graduate degree in music therapy.
That's a really cool concept, Linda. Maybe we should all start like a like a power confidence boost music therapy
and
list.
so I have a, you know, you have a playlist for whatever mood, you know, you need or whatever, but if you need to get pumped up, then, you know, you have a list for that. Play it.
Yeah, that's really great advice. You see why we got to cancel interviews? You see all the anxiety that we're already good performers, but this process doesn't feel right. It feels like a gate, and it shouldn't. Like, this is a mutual relationship between 2 different entities, right? The employer and the employee. We want this relationship to work. Why does it feel like the employer has all the power? That is not how this is going to work. Because the reality is, even if I get through the gambit, I can quit tomorrow. And now you're screwed as an employer. So this is definitely an equal relationship. But why doesn't the interview process feel like that? That's why we just got to cancel them. We got to figure out how this works. So Linda, was that your comment? I don't know if you had a different comment. Okay, that was cool. Okay. Well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We definitely went a little bit over, but I'm hoping that a lot of people got benefit, a lot of great conversations. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you for everyone, a part of the Mentor Mesh family, all the new people that showed up. Thank you. I see you. Raymond Sismet, old colleague of mine. Good to see you, my friend. Glad to have you here. Really good to see everybody. You know, I would love for this event to give people hope, to get you excited about possibilities. I want more people to share your stories. Show up to our weekly Twitter Spaces events and share. Tell us what is horrible about your career and what you wish you could change. Let's talk through it, because even every rock star that's pursuing growth is dealing with imposter syndrome, is not sure if they can do it. Anyone that is growing and winning is questioning themselves all the time. And sometimes you just need a community to remind you of where you've been, remind you of what you're going to accomplish. And keep in mind that every failure is not, the way you deal with failure will determine your success. If you witness a perceived failure, what do? Do you fall over and say, I can't do it? Or do you take it as a lesson learned and you keep going? You miss every shot you don't take. I don't know who said that. Some sports fan said that. But if you don't take it, you're definitely going to miss it. And sometimes I do this to myself, and I'll just leave with this piece of advice. But every time you wonder about what if it goes wrong, take a step back and ask yourself, what if it goes right? I do that all the time. I sit back and I fantasize about winning. And I think about how cool it would be. What if I nailed it? What if this did 10 times better than what I thought it was going to do? And you know what? One of these times you're going to be right. One of these times you are going to nail it. And you're never going to know if you don't try. But thank you, everybody. I hope this community continues to be supportive for everyone. Let this be long-term. Let this be a community that you can turn to when you need help. We all want career growth, no matter what stage that we're in. So thank you for spending your Friday with us. We'll see you again in June. And if nothing else, please consider coming to some of our weekly events. Join MentorMesh if you haven't, mentormesh.io. And if you got suggestions, things that can then help out the community or something you want to provide, don't be shy. There are people in here, this community, that need it. So practice leadership. Mentorship is leadership. So thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks, everybody.